Masechet Sukkah, daf 43. The entire daf will be speaking about lulav and adava on Shabbat versus during the weekday. That they are not brought on Shabbat, but they are brought during other days. And we're going to compare the times of the Bet HaMikdash to the times that are not the Bet HaMikdash, inside and outside, and try to reconstruct all the reasons that for the customs of when each one was brought and not brought, and try to bring it down to modern times with the way we do lulav and adava. So, quick reminder: the Mishnah said lulav and adava, both of them are brought either 6 days or 7 days. And what that meant was here, if Yom Tov Rishon falls out on Shabbat, then we bring lulav even on Shabbat. And but if Shabbat falls out on any of the other days, then we do not bring lulav on one of those days. If it's the 2nd through 7th of Sukkot, and those are Shabbat, we do not bring the lulav. So that's that way. The adava is the opposite. This is all the same, except regarding the 7th day. The 7th day of adava is the most important and overrides Shabbat. But any of the other days, Shabbat overrides adava. So good. So then we're going to have to explain the reason for all of them. So we begin. Amai, what is the reason why one does not take lulav on Shabbat if it falls out on Chol HaMoed? Tiltul be'almahu v'didchei Shabbat. After all, taking a lulav is just moving something. So at worst, it's mukseh. We're not talking about something like berit milah, where you're making a wound, you're doing melacha, and it overrides Shabbat. I mean, there's no melacha being done here to begin with. At max, it would be the mukseh, and that's like only if you didn't, just a branch and you didn't have it in mind. So what would be if you have it in mind, it shouldn't even be mukseh. So what's the problem here? Amar Abba gezerah shema yitelenu biyado v'yelech esel baki lilmod. Rabba says the whole thing is a gezerah midrabanan, that if we allow a person to take lulav on Shabbat, he might go ahead and say, you know what, I'm not sure how to do it. Which way do I weigh first? How do I do it? What's way is upside down? And he's going to go and carry it outside to go to an expert to ask him how to do it. So therefore, during Chol HaMoed, we will not bring the lulav. Okay, and because he's going to carry it for amot. You can ask here, why don't they say that he's going to transfer it from Reshut HaYachid to Reshut HaRabim? Presumably it's at his house, and he's going to transfer it. What is it doing in the middle of Reshut HaRabim? I don't know. Maybe he left it in Reshut HaRabim. He left it on the tree or something. Okay. Anyway, it's the same point. V'hainu ta'amad shofar, v'hainu ta'amad megillah. And by the way, this gezerah that you might carry is also the reason why we do not blow shofar when Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbat. Either of the 2 days, we do not blow, and also Megillah should the 14th of fall out on whenever you're reading it, 14th or 15th fall out on Shabbat. We do not read Megillah on Shabbat. In our calendar, the 14th can never fall out on Shabbat, so we don't have to worry about that. But we had just this past year, the 15th fell out on Shabbat, and so the reading was pushed off till Sunday in Yerushalayim. Okay, now a general principle. The words gezerah, shema, you can do a search yourself, never appear outside of the Bavli, right? Only in the Bavli. So Rabbah, a 3rd generation Amorah, he said this is a gezerah. For each of these things, you have to assume that if you compare it to the Yerushalmi will have a different explanation. And sure enough here, for example, shofar. Why do we take shofar? I mean, it's kind of a pretty big deal to not blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, just because of a gezerah. We're not going to do a mitzvah de oraita. First of all, that's amazing in itself, that a gezerah de rabbanan can uproot a mitzvah de oraita. It shows the power of the rabbis. But also, this is not the only reason. Yerushalmi has a reason that says Yom Teruah and Zichron Teruah. So there must be some Rosh Hashanahs when you blow it, and other Rosh Hashanahs when you only remember blowing it. So what is that? That must be when it falls on Shabbat. See, according to Yerushalmi, it's actually learned from Pesukim. So it will be a deoraita reason as opposed to here where it's a derabanan reason. Okay, so we just keep that in mind. Everything where all the reconstructions and the reasons we're learning here today are according to the Talmud Bavli, but you can reconstruct it otherwise without this gezerah. Okay, now that we know that, if you're saying that, the reason is because you might come to carry the lulav, and so that's why we can't bring it on Shabbat. Well, then that should apply to the first day also. But the Mishnah said that we do take lulav on the first day, just not on Chol HaMoed. So why aren't you worrying about carrying on the first day as well? The answer is Rishon hatakinu leRabbanan bebeto. Remember at the end of the Mishnah yesterday, we saw that when they would bring lulavim, when Yom Tov was on Friday, was on Shabbat, then on Friday they would bring their lulavim from before, and everybody the next day would want to get their own because it was shalachem. You have to own your own on the first day, and everybody was hitting each other, and it was coming to danger, and they made a takana that everybody should leave their lulavim at home and shake them at home and do not bring them. So therefore, we do not have that. That's why there's no problem, right? So you're leaving it in your house. It's interesting because it sounds like the problem is carrying it to the Bet HaMikdash or to the Bet Knesset. Whereas above, Rabba's language was you might carry it to an expert. So the reasoning is changing here because you might still take it to an expert, but here it sounds like the problem is taking it to the Bet Knesset. Okay, that reason of an expert might apply to shofar better, where you really have to go and you might have forgotten how to do tikiyah. You have to go ask him. Okay, so fine, your answer is good after the takana when they said stay home. But before that, once upon a time, everyone did bring their lulavim to the Bet HaMikdash and to the Bet Knesiot, as the previous Mishnah said, Bet Knesset, and they brought them and they shook them there. So why aren't we worried that people are going to carry them from their home if they forget to bring them or carry it to an expert? So why should we allow people to shake even on the first day? So rather, it's as follows. The first day, which is chayav mideoraita, everywhere, even outside the Bet HaMikdash, so the rabbis are not going to make a gezerah because it's a midoraita everywhere. However, the other days that are only midrabanan outside the Bet HaMikdash, so the rabbis did make a gezerah. So I think this makes a lot of sense outside the Bet HaMikdash. My assumption, I think the Peshat of the Mishnah is talking mostly about outside the Bet HaMikdash anyway. So therefore, it's as follows: since the other seven, the rest of the days on days 2 through 7 are taking lulav is only midrabanan, and so if it's Shabbat and we're worried that you're going to violate Shabbat, then for sure it makes a lot of sense. We're worried you're going to carry on Shabbat, so don't do this lulav midrabanan. But the first day where taking the lulav is deoraita, it makes more sense that you would want to do it and not worry so much about the gezerah. If you apply this to the Bet HaMikdash also, which would be surprising, that would mean that even in the Bet HaMikdash, they did not take it if it fell out on Chol HaMoed, but on Shabbat they did because it's so important outside the Bet HaMikdash. It increases its importance even in the Bet HaMikdash. But that would mean that even in the Bet HaMikdash, although it's Deoraita, they didn't do it. It's hard for me to believe that really they didn't take lulav in the Bet HaMikdash on all 7 days. But that is how the commentaries explain this line. Okay. Hold on. Today also, why don't we say the same thing? And since it is the oraita, so we should not worry about the gezerah. And nowadays, right now, today, this coming Sukkot, we should bring lulav. It's not on Shabbat, right? When it is on Shabbat, we should bring it. And then, no, we are not sure about the exact day of the month. So we're not sure if it's going to be Shabbat or Sunday, and therefore we're not going to bring it on Shabbat when we might come to carry it. So the gezerah is more important than a safek de oraita. And so that's why we don't bring it today. because we're not sure of the calendar. Okay, question then. But in Eretz Israel, they do know the exact day, right? Over there, they have the witnesses, and they're nearby, and so they can figure out when it is. So really, in Eretz Israel, they should, even nowadays, bring lulav. Of course, nowadays we have a set calendar, so we actually know, but we still treated it as if we have a safek. But in Eretz Israel, it's not a safek. And the answer is, you're right. In Eretz Israel, they do. They will bring. They do bring it. Now, obviously, this is not halacha l'maaseh. If you've ever been on Sukkot to Eretz Israel, you know that when it falls on Shabbat, they do not bring it. And we're going to conclude the daf all the way at the end to say no. But at this stage, we're assuming that in Bavel, you wouldn't bring lulav on Shabbat on the first day, but in Eretz Israel, they would. The Taneh Hada. ביום טוב הראשון של חג, שחל להיות בשבת, כל העם מוליכין את לולביהן להר הבית. After all, a Mishnah we saw at the end of the previous perek said that, in this perek we saw, it says that everyone would bring their lulavim on Shabbat to Har HaBayit. But another Mishnah, the one that we had in the previous perek, said the same line except lebet HaKnesset. So you see, there's two different instances. Shema mina, kan bizman she bet hamikdash kayam, kan bizman she en hamikdash kayam, shema mina. And therefore, we learn from that difference that it applies to both. That when the Bet HaMikdash is up, yes, they would bring their lulavim even on Shabbat. I mean, they would bring them before, but they would shake them on Shabbat. That's true in the Bet HaMikdash, and it was true in the Bet Knesset as well. And that would mean that, according to this, even until today in Eretz Israel, people would be able to shake their lulavim on Shabbat because they know the exact date. And so a certainty of a deoraita overrides a gezerah midirabanan.
So they could shake them and they could carry them?
No, not carry them. Not carry them. Just shake them. They have to take it to the Bet Knesset before or do it at home.
But how did they bring it to the Mikdash or to the Bet Knesset on Shabbat then?
They didn't. They brought it on Friday.
Oh, it wasn't till 2 then.
Wasn't till 2. I know. Till 2, it's a little confusing. When I said take them, I mean take them to shake them, but not bring it to the Bet HaMikdash. This would be like Brit Milah today, right? You're allowed to do Brit Milah on Shabbat, but you can't carry the knife right? You have to bring it from beforehand. And there were cases when you forgot to bring it before, and that causes huge problems. They had to do all kinds of loopholes. So this would be the same. This would be the same thing. You cannot violate for carrying, but you can shake it. I mean, you're not even violating Shabbat by shaking it. It's not even a melacha, so it's much easier than Brit Milah. Good. How do you know that you can bring lulav on Shabbat outside the Bet HaMikdash? According to that, what's the source that lulav overrides Shabbat even on the first day, only on the first day? The Tanya ul kachtem. So now we're going to quote the Midrash Halacha in its entirety. Ul kachtem sheteli kicha biyad kol echad ve'echad. This teaches that every single person has to bring a lulav for themselves. Unlike communal sacrifices, like the Omer, right? So what the Kohen, you bring one Omer, he waves it, and that covers everyone. Everyone gave machasita shekel, so they have a part in it, but only one person has to do it. You might have thought the same thing because we compared lulav. This is actually, we can add this to the list. Another way we're comparing lulav to a communal sacrifice. Maybe everybody will chip in, use machasita shekel, buy one lulav, and one person does it. No, it doesn't work. Everyone has to shake a lulav. Lulav lachem, mishalachem, you have to own it on the first day. This is all talking about the first day. Lo siyata shaol v'tegazul, not borrowed and not stolen. Bayom v'afilu b'Shabbat. Ukachtem lachem bayom haShabbat. Right. So even on Shabbat, bayom, even if taken on Shabbat. So bayom rishon afilu bigbulin. So the word rishon, since it doesn't qualify where, means everywhere. Harishon melamed she'eno doche ela yom tov harishon bilbad. Hey Yediyah is a limiting word and says that whatever I just said, that bayom, you have to take it on that day. By the way, bayom, we also learn like Brit Milah, right? Bayom hashemini, even on Shabbat. So we're using the same thing here. But Harishon means only the mitzvah on the first day overrides Shabbat, but not any of the other days. Good. So that's the Midrash Halacha. Now we're going to analyze it further. Amar mor bayom v'afilu b'Shabbat. Mikedi tiltul ba'almahu. Yisterich kera l'mishre tiltul. What am I doing? I'm just shaking it. I need a pasuk to tell me I'm allowed to shake a branch. I'm not doing anything. It's not like a brit milah where I'm violating a melacha. Amarava lo nisrecha ele lemachshirei lulav v'alibada haytana detanya lulav v'chol machshirav dochin et Shabbat divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, this is mind blowing. Rava says that this midrash halacha is according to Rabbi Eliezer, and is talking about the things that you would do to prepare the lulav. For example, maybe it's still connected to the tree, and you have to pluck it off. That would be isur de oraita. Okay, and that would be a surah de oraita. So this is according to that Tana, which Tana, Rabbi Eliezer, who says not only shaking lulav, all the preparations for lulav also override Shabbat. Everybody remembers who Rabbi Eliezer is? He's the one that said, not only can you do a brit milah on Shabbat, you can even carry it, you can even prepare the knife, you can even cut down trees to make a fire so that you can prepare the knife to carry it and go and do the brit milah. So he says the same thing regarding lulav. This applies to all everything, and that's what he says. Bayom afilu b'Shabbat. So it's a exact parallel to brit milah bayom hashemini, but that only applies on Yom Tov, not to bringing lulav on Chol HaMoed. Okay, so that's an amazing parallel. My Tama did Rabbi Eliezer. Has Rabbi Eliezer know this? Well, we already said. Amar kera bayom afilu b'Shabbat. Okay, good. Now Rabbanan, hi bayom, my abdile. The other rabbis, everybody else who says, yes, you can shake the lulav because you're not doing anything, but you can't go and cut down the tree on Shabbat. So what would they say? What would they do with the word bayom? It's a good question. This is to teach that during the day, but not during the night, that the mitzvah of bringing lulav applies during the day, but you don't bring lulav at night. Okay, so Rabbi Eliezer, has Rabbi Eliezer, where is he going to derive this? That the mitzvah is only during the day to shake, but not at night. Nafkale misefa dekera usmachtem lifnei Hashem Elokechem shiv'at yamim velo lelot. I have another one, right? I have bayom in the beginning. That's to teach me I should do it on Shabbat, and yamim at the end. That teaches me during daytime. Okay, fine. V'Rabbanan I mehatam hava amina lelaf yamim mesuka malalan yamim v'af lelot afkan nameh yamim v'afilu lelot. Says that's no good. If I just had the word yamim, I would say yamim means 24-hour days, like Sukkah, where it says basukot teshevu shivat yamim, and that means day and night. So the word bayom, that's particular, that's daytime. Yamim, I assume would mean, if I only had that, I would assume it means all day and night. Okay, so that's why the rabbis use the word bayom to teach me daytime, whereas Eliezer use it to learn even that you can even pluck it off on Shabbat. Good. Now the Sukkah gufa minelan. Now that you brought up Sukkah, this is a good question. How do you know that Sukkah applies even during the night? The Tanura Banan. Basukot teshebu shivat yamim va'afilu lelot. So this is a typical midrash halacha. We start with a hypothesis that teshebu shivat yamim means 24-hour days, day and night. Then we ask about that hypothesis. Ata omed yamim va'afilu lelot o eno ela yamim velo lelot. Wait a second. Do you mean it means day and night? Maybe it means day and not night. V'din hu ne'emar kan yamim v'ne'emar belulav yamim. Malalan yamim velo lelot afkan yamim velo lelot. We'll learn it from actually lulav, where it also says yamim, shivat yamim, and there it's talking about day and not night. So to here we're talking about day and not night. So you see that this midrash is assuming the opinion of Rabbanan that we just saw above. Okay, or Rabbi Eliezer, right? Both opinions there. Rabbi Eliezer specifically actually learned yamim velo lelot from here. So it could be Rabbi Eliezer there. So okay, that's one way to learn. If we compare Sukkah to lulav, then just like lulav is only during the day, then so too Sukkah is only during the day. So why don't I learn that way? Yeah. או כלך לדרך זו. נאמר כאן ימים, ונאמר במילואים ימים, מה להלן ימים ואפילו לילות, אף כאן ימים ואפילו לילות. Or I can look around for another place that says the word yamim. You know where else it says it? Regarding the Yemim Miluim, the beginning, the inauguration of the Mishkan, where Aaron was to stay in the Mishkan for 7 days straight and not leave. It says Yomam v'Layla, so it says specifically Teshivu. Even the word Teshivu, Yomam v'Layla, Shivat Yamim. So the word Yamim here clearly means day and night. So better to learn from here that Sukkot also is day and night. By the way, another connection between Sukkah and Mishkan, right? Where we should feel like we are like Aaron. We're dwelling in the Mishkan by sitting in the Sukkah day and night. So now we have two options. Either we compare Sukkah to Lulav, and then it would be only during the day, or we compare Sukkah to Mishkan, and then it would be day and night. It says the word Yamim in all three places. So how do I know which one to do? Well, now we have to see to which one is it more similar. You see, this is very important regarding Gezerah Shava. Sometimes people look at a Gezerah Shava and says, oh, you're just finding the word the here and the word the there. But essentially, especially the early Tanaitic Gezerot Shavot, and this is from a Midrash Halacha, are actually can't have a lot of content as well. It makes sense to look at the word Yamim and say, well, what does it mean? But now we're going to make a conceptual analogy. What is it more similar to? דנין דבר שמצוותו כל היום מדבר שמצוותו כל היום ואל יוכיח דבר שמצוותו שעה אחת. We should learn one mitzvah that is continuous, sitting in a sukkah. You have to do while you're eating, while you're sleeping. It takes a long time, has a long duration. So that's good to learn from Mishkan, which also was a long duration mitzvah. And don't learn it from Lulav. Lulav just takes 5 seconds. You go like this and then you're finished. So it's more, Sukkah is more similar to Mishkan. Wait a second, I can make another conceptual analogy. Conceptually, Sukkah is more similar to Lulav because they both apply for all future generations. Unlike the inauguration day, that was a one-time only mitzvah for Aaron. The first time they used the Mishkan, he has to stay there for 7 days. No one is ever going to do that mitzvah ever again. So that is more different than according to that, we should sit in mitzvah of Sukkah should be only during the day. Talmud Omar Teshevu Teshevu. So finally, we bring not only the word Yamim, but also the word Teshevu. So this makes it much stronger. If you have both of these words, how often do you have both of these words in a pasuk together? So here it says Basukot Teshevu Shivat Yamim. So that's a Gezerah Shava. Ne'emar kan teshevu, ne'emar b'meluim teshevu, malalan yamim va'afilu leilot, afkan yamim va'afilu leilot. So if it says to dwell and says yamim, then that means during the day and during the night. Okay, so that was a tangent. We get to remember something from the first two Perakim regarding the mitzvah of Sukkah. And now that we understand Lulav and why Lulav is brought on the first day, but not any of the other days because of the Gezerah, now we're going to turn to Arava, which is flipped. You bring it on the 7th day of Sukkot, even on Shabbat, but not on Shabbat if it falls out on any of the previous days. Okay, by the way, in our calendar, this we call it today Hoshana Rabbah. Hoshana Rabbah can never fall out on Shabbat. How do you know that? Remember the famous mnemonic, Lo Adu Rosh. So that means Rosh Hashanah cannot be on Sunday. Rosh Hashanah is always the first day as the first day of Sukkot, right? It's 2 weeks later. And so therefore, Sukkot can also never begin on Sunday. Since the first day can never be on Sunday, the 7th day can never be on Shabbat. So Hoshana Rabbah in our calendar can never be on Shabbat. So we don't have this problem. And this Hoshana Rabbah can never be on. Yeah, so we don't have this problem, and actually that Lo Adu, the Aleph of Lo Adu, is because of this. All the problems we're going to see right now of Hoshana Rabbah falling out on Shabbat, and what would you do? Therefore, the rabbis arranged the whole calendar to make sure it doesn't happen. Okay, so anyway, but in times of the Beit HaMikdash, it did happen, and it could happen, and they would bring the Aravot. Arava b'shiv'i ma'ita ma'adachia Shabbat. So now the question is, Adava, remember the mitzvah of Adava, every day they would bring Adavot, and what would they do with them is a good question. Do they shake them, or do they stand them up against the Mizbeach? Maybe both things, which is the main thing. Anyway, every day they would do that once and circle once. On Shabbat, they would do 7 times and make a big deal out of it. So that does override Shabbat. Why? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, kedei lefarsema shehi min haTorah. We wanted to override Shabbat, at least for one day, to publicize that the mitzvah of Adava is mid deoraita. Now, why would anybody think it's not deoraita? Because it's not in the Torah, right? It doesn't actually say it. We saw a hint. Abba Shaul said, it says arvei nachal, plural. Oh, that's mitzvah Adava for the lulav, and another one. Or maybe it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai. But this was a point of huge controversy, as we're going to see. The Beit Tosim, the other sectarians, that disagreed, and they thought there's no mitzvah of Adava. So the rabbis had to go out of their way to say, we're going to pick one day to make Adava, we're going to violate Shabbat for Adava to prove that this is a real deoraita. So this is a polemic. Okay, very interesting. If so, lulav, maybe also lulav should override, so that it's publicized that it is from the Torah. No, lulav gezerah mishum derabah. Lulav, we don't do it during the week, meaning on the 7th day. So lulav, we don't do it because of Rabbah. You might come to carry it. Why don't you say the same thing regarding Adava, that you might come to carry the Adavot? The answer is Adava shiduche betin maitila. Lulav lakom asur. Lulav, everybody has to bring a lulav. So every people are mad at us, they're going to forget, they're going to start carrying. Who does Adava? It's done only in the Bet HaMikdash. And so the Bet Din oversees it. And it seems like only the Kohanim would actually, because only the Kohanim are allowed in that area behind the Mizbeach. So only they would do it. But the Bet Din is over there, overseeing it, and they'll be careful and make sure that no one is carrying it, so you can have more control over it. By the way, this would be explained shofar also. Shofar was not blown on Shabbat anywhere else, but it was blown on in the Bet HaMikdash. And again, also because you can make sure that it's done properly. Okay, kol yoma name lidche. If so, if Adava, the mitzvah of Adava is controlled by Bet Din, then it should override Shabbat any day of Sukkot. Why? Or does it override Shabbat only on the 7th? Since we're not worried about the gezerah of Rabbah of carrying. That it doesn't look nice for lulav. Can you imagine one day Shabbat falls out sometime in the middle, and you're going to take Adava, but you're not going to take lulav? People are going to make light of the mitzvah of lulav. Oh, you see, so that doesn't violate Shabbat. So you see that whenever the rabbis are thinking about should it override Shabbat or Shabbat override it, it has a lot to do with public perception. Are people going to now respect it more or less? So all this has to do, the rabbis are very careful in thinking about, people don't always know the technicalities, so we have to think about their perception as well. So, okay, so I understand that Adava has to override Shabbat on some day. You pick one day so that everybody knows it's deoraita. But why the 7th day? There's nothing special about the 7th day. Let it override the first day, the same as lulav. No, it won't be clear to everyone that we're violating because of Adava. They're going to say, oh, since we override Shabbat, since we override Shabbat because of lulav, so we'll bring the Adava also. We're carrying a bunch of things anyway, so carry one more thing. And it won't be clear to them that we're specifically overriding Shabbat for the lulav. It won't have that impact, especially not against the Beit Tosim. Okay. Okay, so pick any day. It can't be the first day because we're going to bring lulav. But how about any day of the Chol Moed? Once it's not the first, make it the last. So that the second most important day is the last day, right? The beginning and the end of an essay, right? The last is the most clear, the most memorable, and so that will have the most impact. Good. So let the mitzvah of the Adava override Shabbat even today. There's no Bet HaMikdash. but we should also want to publicize it and do it. But today we don't do it on Shabbat. Nowadays, by the way, we don't bring aravot on all the days anyway, because really it's a bit of mikdash thing, and you're bringing it for on the mizbeach, so it doesn't make so much sense. So what we do is we bring some aravot and we shake them, and we do it on the seventh day as a remembrance to that time. But we would not do it on Shabbat. If theoretically Hoshana Rabbah was on Shabbat, we would not bring it. The question is, why not? Why shouldn't we do it anyway, even on Shabbat, to show that it's Deoraita? And then because we don't really know, is today Hoshana Rabbah? Was yesterday Hoshana Rabbah? So therefore, for a sefek, we're not going to override Shabbat. Okay, fine. We don't know in Bavel, but in Eretz Yisrael they do know. So maybe they should do the Hoshana Rabbah on the seventh day, even on Shabbat. So Bar Hedja, when he came from Eretz Yisrael, he says it never coincides. Hoshana Rabbah will never be on Shabbat. Okay, Bar Hedja, by the way, is a famous person in Masechet Berachot. He was the dream interpreter, but he was a corrupt guy. So it's interesting. I don't know if it's the same guy. It has the same name. Okay, anyway, that's what he said. The other people, the messengers from Eretz Yisrael, however, disagreed with him. And he said, yes, sometimes the seventh day of Pesach is on Shabbat, and it does not override. Right, so we're back to our question. So why not? Right, if indeed we pick one day, and the day we pick is the seventh day, and it's really deoraita, and we want to show that it's important law, and then it should violate even nowadays, and we should do Hoshana Rabbah even on Shabbat. Good. When I say Hoshana Rabbah, I mean the aravot. Amar Rav Yosef, man le malan da arava bintila dilma biskifa. Wait, who told you that when we say arava, it means taking and shaking the aravot? Maybe the main thing of the arava mitzvah is standing it upright against the mizbeach. And we don't have a mizbeach, so that's why we can't do it at all, right? The only thing that you want to bring it on the Sunday just for fun, just to remember, fine, but you're not going to override Shabbat because the main part of the arava mitzvah was standing it up and not taking it in your hand. Okay, good. So that is Rav Yosef's thesis, that the main mitzvah is standing it up, not taking it into your hand. Abaye is going to challenge Rav Yosef from three different sources. Three times. Amar itibe Abaye. Lulav arava shisha v'shib'a. We just said in our Mishnah that lulav and arava sometimes is brought 6 days and sometimes 7 days. My love kedulav. Ma lulav b'ntila, af arava b'ntila. Look how our Mishnah groups lulav and arava together. It has other groupings, right? It had other things like playing flutes, but lulav and arava are together. So therefore, they're similar to each other. Just like lulav means taking it in your hand is the mitzvah, so to arava, taking in your hand is a mitzvah. And we could do that today. So that's a question. And to Rav Yosef answers, Midi Iria, Hakedite. No, just because the Mishnah mentioned Lulav and Arava back to back doesn't mean that they're the same. Lulav is done by taking into your hands. Arava is done by making it upright on the Mizbeach. And that doesn't apply today, and that's why we don't do it nowadays. Okay, that's a good answer. Iti beh Abaye. A second challenge. Bechol yom makifin et hamizbeach pamachat ve'oto hayom sheba pe'amim. This is an upcoming Mishnah that describes the day of Arava. That every day, it describes the day of Arava, and right after that in the Mishnah it says every day they would circumambulate. That's a good word. The mizbeach one time, but on the seventh day they would do it 7 times. This is like Yericho, right? They also went around once every day. On the seventh day, 7 times. Maybe that's the precedent for it. My la ba'arava. So what is this describing? Is it not describing arava? So what do you see from here? That arava, what's the main mitzvah of arava? Taking it in your hand and marching around with it. So that's it. It's taking it in your hand. says, Lo belulav. No, read that Mishnah differently. The beginning of the Mishnah certainly is talking about Yom Arava, but the rest, the mitzvah of Arava, but from then on, then it says, and by the way, we take lulav and we walk around the Mizbeach one time and then 7 times. Okay, so then that's how Rav Yosef could answer it. And now he proves his point. That's about taking it in your hand. Okay, hold on, we have an explicit tradition that from Rav Nachman and that the mitzvah of Arava is that you hold the Aravot when you walk around, and so it is in fact taking the Arava and not standing it up on the Mizbeach. We have to take Arava. Who is he? He's a contemporary. Okay, he says he's Arava. I say that when you walk around, it's with lulav. You don't walk around with Arava. Arava, you stand up on the upon the Mizbeach. Itemar. Now, by the way, we're going to see some other opinions. Who says that the walking around is done with Arava or lulav? Itmar Rabbi Elazar Omer belulav, Rav Shmuel bar Natan Amar b'chena ba'arava, v'chen Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rabba bar Abu ba'arava. Okay, so we have other opinions. Now, Marle Ravad Rav Yitzchak bered Rabba bar Hana bar Urieh Tave Emar Lach Milatam Aliyata Dava Amar Abu. Just a long introduction to yet another tradition about this. Rava tells Rav Yitzchak, the son of Rabba bar Hana, he said, son of Torah. Uriah is like Oraita. So he's talking about his father, who was a great sage. He says, come, I want to tell you a great thing that your father told me. The Mishnah, the next Mishnah in our Perek, that says every day they would go around the Mizbeach 1 time, and on the 7th day 7 times. Your father told me the name of Rabbi Elazar that's talking about, they're carrying the lulav all that time. So anyway, according to all this, it's the lulav that they're carrying around, and that Rav Yosef can use as his answer. The lulav is carried and taken in hand. Arava, the main mitzvah, is to stand it up. And you can't do that on the Shabbat, and therefore you can't do that outside the Beit HaMikdash, and that's why we don't do it on Shabbat, even on the 7th day. Okay, so Rav Yosef answered that question, and the last question, Aitibeh, Abaye said, lulav dochet Shabbat b'tchilato, v'arava b'sofo. Tosefta here says that lulav overrides Shabbat at the beginning on the first day, and Arava overrides it on the last day. And it continues and tells us an amazing story. One time, Hoshtan Araba was on Shabbat. Again, we don't have this in our calendar, but this is before they had the fixed calendar that we have. And the witnesses came, and it fell out on Shabbat. So what did they do? So they went out and got willows from before, and they brought it to the Beit HaMikdash on Friday, and left it in the courtyard. And then on the next day, then they would take, on Shabbat, they would take them and put them surrounding the Mizbeach, and that would be very beautiful. So they had a whole plan. However, during the night, the Beit Tosim saw them, or during the day, whatever it was, the Beit Tosim saw and said, "Oh, look, they brought willows here, so that they could do the Arava mitzvah." They think it's from the Torah. Beit Tosim say we only follow what's in the Peshat of the Torah. Doesn't say anything about that, and we don't want them to do it. So they undermined the mitzvah, and they took stones and placed them on the Aravot. Now, how's that going to help? Number one, it'll hide them. I don't think it's going to hide them totally, but it does is now the rabbis won't be able to move the stones on Shabbat because they're mukseh, and then they'll be stuck and like, oh no, we can't get the Aravot, they're mukseh, right? And now the Beit Tosim are preventing the rabbis from doing this mitzvah. למחר הכירו בהן עמי הארץ ושמטום מתחת האבנים וביום הכהנים וזקפום בצידי המזבח. The next day, the Amei Aretz, not the sages that were there, just the regular people. They said, oh no, hey, someone covered the Aravot. So they moved the rocks. They were Amei Aretz, so they didn't know all the details about the law. Are you allowed? You're not allowed? Maybe it's allowed. Anyway, they just took it. This proves, by the way, that the masses of the people actually follow the Perushim and the rabbis and not the Baitosim, which we know from Josephus and many other sources. So they moved them, and then the Kohanim said, okay, everything's okay now. It's a good question. Would we? But anyway, now they're available. So they took them and they put them next to the Mizbeach. Now it's just giving you the background that Baitosim do not agree that you can do chibut araba. The word chibut, you see, they translate here as waving. It can mean shaking. It could also mean hitting. So when we have a custom now, at least Sfaradim, I don't know if everybody has this custom. We say chabit, chabit, and we bang it on the ground. And chibut does have that meaning. But I think the original meaning is chibut means to shake it violently, to shake it a lot. And so, because there was no need to bang it on anything, but maybe we bang it on the floor, like the floor is like the mizbeach. Anyway, so chibut, they would shake the aravot, and they did not agree that can override Shabbat, but we do think it overrides Shabbat. Anyway, what's the whole point? Almat bin tilahi. Therefore, this proves that they shake them, and doesn't say that they put them on the mizbeach. See, because it says they don't agree bechibut arava. So the fact that it calls it that means the taking is the main mitzvah, and that would be a refutation of Rav Yosef's response that we don't take it on Shabbat, which is the seventh day, because we don't have a mizbeach. But you don't need a mizbeach; you could just shake it anyway to yubta. So now we're back to our original question. After all that, so then in Eretz Yisrael, they should even today bring the aravot even on Shabbat and shake them. The answer is, since in Bavel they don't do it, in Israel they don't do it also. We don't want to have lotit kodedu, have different customs, lo pelug, right? We want to have one common thing that all Jewry does. So Bavel, maybe there were more people and more Jews and a lot more learned people in Bavel. So Eretz Yisrael went along with Bavel. I mean, after Bavel, they can't do it because they don't know the day. So Eretz Yisrael gave in and didn't do it either. By that logic, then, on the first day also, remember before we said, when the first day of Yom Tov is Shabbat, in Bavel, they don't take lulav. In Eretz Yisrael, they do take lulav. So why don't you say the same thing? And in Eretz Yisrael, they should be like Bavel, to have one custom, uniformity for all of Am Yisrael. And they shouldn't do it there either. Says you're right. For Eretz Yisrael, it also does not override. And this is the conclusion. And this is why today, no matter where you are in the world, nobody takes lulav on the first day of Yom Tov if it's on Shabbat. Let's do the last paragraph. Now these two sources, remember the two sources, we said we compared them. Now it's going to be difficult again. The Tanachada kol hayam molichin et lulvehen harabayit betanya idach lebet haKnesset umetarsinan kan bizman shebet hamidrash kayam kan bizman she'em hamidrash kayam. Before, when we compared the two mishnayot, and one of them said that when it falls on Shabbat, they would bring the lulavim on Friday in Bet HaMikdash, and the other one said in Bet HaKnesset. And we answered and said, you know why it says both? Because when the Bet HaMikdash was built, they did it, and even after the Bet HaMikdash, they still bring it to Bet Knesset, and they do shake on the first day. So that means you're allowed to shake on the first day, and that was our answer. So he says, no, we're going to change our answer. Both of these mishnayot are talking about during the time of the Bet HaMikdash, and at that time, yes, they would bring lulav even on Shabbat. That was the first day, both in Bet HaMikdash and in the Bet Knesset. However, afterwards, after the Bet HaMikdash is destroyed, then nobody any longer would bring on Shabbat bring it on Shabbat outside, because they're not sure which day it is, and in Israel because they want to make sure to have uniformity together with Bavel. That's a beautiful note to end on of having unity and uniformity for all of Am Yisrael. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen.